Goblin launch detected.
Hey gang, using the promo code MTGMudsta, one word, all caps, will get you 10% off orders of $10 or more at Flipside Gaming, Original Magic Art, and orders of singles at Multizone. If they don't have what you're looking for, you could check out TCG Player and use my affiliate link to help support the channel. Looking for a way to bling out your deck and not spend a fortune? Alter Sleaze can help with that, and you can help with the channel at the same time by using my affiliate link. Or, if you're looking to join the Goblin Gang, you can always support me through Patreon. Alrighty, today's game is a bit of an old one, since I'm playing with the Gamebreaker gang, and my deck is Greven. I've got a Mountain, 2 Swamps, Thought Vessel, Hex Parasite, Evolving Wilds, and Fire Covenant. Max has got a Sliver Queen keeping a Supreme Verdict, Perforos, Oversoul of Dusk, Exotic Orchard, Command Tower, Arcane Sanctum, and Mystic Sanctuary. Nick is playing the Big Athreos, keeping Swamp, Caves of Koilos, Mana Vault, Skull Clamp, Strionic Resonator, Dance of the Dead, and Disciple of Bolas. And last but not least, Martin has his Brudiclad deck, keeping a Hammer of Perforos, an Island, a Hangerback Walker, a Mimic Fat, a Myriad Landscape, an Izzet Signet, and a Quasi-Duplicate. Nick wins at eye roll and starts us off. Nick plays a Caves of Koilos, tapping it for 1 for a Skull Clamp. Martin plays a tap Myriad Landscape. I play an Evolving Wilds and sacrifice it to find a basic as I pass to Max. Max draws and plays a tap Mystic Sanctuary. Nick plays a tap Godless Shrine and then taps his Caves of Koilos once more to cast a Mana Vault. Martin plays an Island and casts an Izzet Signet. I play another Mountain and cast my own Mana Rock, Thought Vessel. Max plays another tap land, an Arcane Sanctum, passing. Nick plays a Swamp and is able to tap out for Athreos in his main phase. He ends his turn, but unfortunately has no other target to put the coin counter from Athreos on. Martin draws and plays a Scalding Tarn. He activates the Signet to sacrifice the landscape, and sacrifices his Tarn to save some time, losing 1 as he goes to find 3 lands. I draw, play a Swamp, and cast a Treasonous Ogre. Max plays an Exotic Orchard for turn, and casts his first god of the game, Kefnet the Mindful. He then passes to Nick. Nick takes 1 from his Mana Vault in his upkeep, and plays a Swamp for turn, and taps enough for a Strionic Resonator. He passes to his end of turn, activating the Resonator with Athreos' ability on the stack to give both the Ogre and Kefnet a coin counter. Martin untaps and draws. He plays an Idol of Oblivion, and then taps enough for a Mimic Vat and passes. I play a Swamp for turn, and tap out for Greven. I go to combat, swinging the Ogre at Nick, who takes the hit, and I then pass to Max. Max's turn is quite quick, as he plays a Bloodstained Mire, sacrifices it, and loses 1 for a land, announcing he'll find an untapped Shock land. This means he takes another 2, but he shortcuts first, playing out Perforos. He then passes as he goes to find a land. Nick loses another 1 to the Vault in his upkeep, and draws. He plays out a Disciple of Bolas without anything to sacrifice, and passes. At the end of turn, he puts the coin counter onto Greven. Martin draws and taps 3 for Herald's Banner. He names blue, and then casts a Hammer of Perforos, passing. My turn has me casting a Felwar Stone first, followed by a Hex Parasite. The Parasite is mostly insurance against Nick, and I swing Greven at Max, who nervously announces no blocks. Max then takes the 5, and I pass turn. Max plays a Plains and has enough of the colors needed to cast an Oversoul of Dusk, passing. Nick takes 1 from the vault and draws. He uses Skull Clamp on the Disciple, drawing 2 as it dies. We see a Plains come into play, and Nick then casts an Orzhov Signet. He passes and puts a coin counter onto the Hex Parasite, with Athreos' ability at the end of turn. Martin's turn has him tapping out in his main phase for Brudiclad, and he makes a Mirror token as he moves to combat, and passes through the combat step. In his second main phase, he taps the Idol of Oblivion to draw a card because he made a token this turn. He passes, and at the end of turn, I use my Mana Rocks to activate the Hex Parasite, removing the coin counter from it. I play a mountain for turn and ask for life totals. I then activate the Parasite's ability, paying life for the Phyrexian mana, and put 0 into the X. I swing once more at max, and I get a Greven trigger. This lets me sacrifice my Treasonous Ogre, and I activate the Hex Parasite once more, paying the mana to remove the counters from it. I then lose 3 life from the Ogre's toughness, and draw 2 cards from sacrificing it. Max then takes a total of 10 commander damage, and in my second main phase, I cast a Crypt Cast before passing. Max untaps and draws, asking for my intentions. He plays an Opal Palace and taps enough for a Sliver Queen using the Opal Palace's ability. This has it come in with a +1/+1 counter, and it also triggers Athreos to deal 2 to each of Max's opponents. Nick loses another 1 to his vault on his upkeep and plays a Plains. He pays 5 for a Puppeteer Clique, stealing my Treasonous Ogre. He then casts a Dance of the Dead from hand, bringing back his Disciple of Bolas, and sacrifices the Clique as it enters. It dies and comes back with a Persist trigger, while Nick draws 3 cards and gains 3 life from the Disciple. He then moves to his end step, layering his triggers to resolve the Athreos one first, and puts a coin counter onto my Treasonous Ogre. He then exiles the Ogre to the Clique trigger, but is able to bring it back fully under his control thanks to Athreos, which is kinda gross. Martin untaps and draws. He plays a mountain and pays 5 for Kazul. With that resolving, he puts out a Hangerback Walker with 1 into each X, so it comes in with a +1/+1 counter. Moving to combat, Martin then gets another Mirror from Brudiclad and passes through his combat steps. In his second main phase, he taps the idol to draw a card and passes. I untap and draw. I play a mountain for turn and cast Scourge of the Throne. He doesn't have haste sadly, but I go to combat anyway. I swing Greven at Nick, and with Greven's trigger on the stack, I pay 2 life into the Parasite's ability, plus 1 colorless to remove the counter from the Sliver Queen. I then sacrifice the Parasite, drawing 2 and losing 1 life. Nick blocks with the Ogre and the Clique, but Greven still survives. In my second main phase, I cast a Dolmen Gate and pass to Max. Max plays a command tower and casts Klothys. Because of Devotion, Klothys is actually an active creature as they enter, and Athreos deals 2 to each of Max's opponents. Sliver Queen then heads at me, which I block with my Crypt Cast, and Max passes to Nick. Nick loses 1 to his vault and draws. He plays a Swamp for turn and drops a Ravenous Chupacabra. It enters and sadly blows up Greven. Nick then casts Ritual of the Machine, which is just such a weird black card. He sacrifices the Disciple, which Martin swaps for the Clique under the bat, and Nick then takes control of Kazul as the spell resolves. He then passes, putting the coin counter onto my Scourge. Martin activates his Mimic Vat, making a token copy of the Disciple. It enters, and Martin sacrifices the Hangerback Walker, drawing 1 and gaining 1 life as he does. He makes a Thopter token as it dies, and then puts to sack a Zindersplit's Judgment. Max needs to double check what's happening with this card, and makes a token with the Sliver Queen, which deals 2 to each of his opponents as it enters. Martin then names us all as foes, while he himself is a friend, and we have to bounce a creature back to our hands, while he makes a token copy of the Disciple, sacrificing the earlier made version of the Disciple, gaining 2 and drawing 2. Martin then taps the idol to draw a card, and moves to combat. He makes another Mirror token, and then has all of his tokens become a copy of the 1/1 Flying Thopter. He passes to me. I draw and play Tarnished Citadel. I recast the Scourge and pass to Max. Max has his Klothys trigger on his upkeep, exiling the Clique from Nick's yards to deal 2 to each of his opponents and gaining him 2 life. Bontu then enters in his main phase, dealing 2 to Max's opponents with Athreos. He goes to combat and hits me with Sliver Queen and passes. Nick takes 1 in his upkeep from the vault and draws. He plays another Swamp for turn and taps 6 for Descend Upon the Sinful. This has Max sacrificing the Oversoul to Bontu, scrying 1 and draining his opponents each for 1 while gaining 1. With a loss of 5 Devotion, this turns off Athreos and Klothys' creatures, and Max then sacrifices Kefnet to Bontu as well. With Kefnet dying, Martin decides to steal it to his Mimic Vat. Max then scries 1 and bottoms it and drains us all for 1 again. The exile then resolves, but Nick doesn't have Delirium and he doesn't gain an Angel token. He does pass to Martin. Martin untaps and draws, playing Hanowar Battlements as his land drop. He recasts Brudiclad and then 7 dwarves. Moving to combat, he gets a Mirror token and goes with everything at max. In his second main phase, he taps the idol to draw a card and passes to me. I recast Greven in my main phase, passing. Max untaps and draws, resolving his Clothis trigger by eating my Cryptcast. This has his opponents each losing 2 while he gains 2, and in his main phase, he casts a Pharika and then a Coalition Relic before passing turn. Nick untaps, losing another one to his vault, and he plays a Plains. He recasts the Ravenous Chupacabra, who blows up Brudiclad as it enters. Sun Titan then comes in, and as it enters, brings back the Dance of the Dead. Using that, he brings back the Disciple, sacrificing the Chupacabra to draw 2 and gain 2. At the end of turn, he puts the coin counter onto the 7 dwarves, but decides against it and instead puts it on his Disciple. Martin puts to sack a Blasphemous Act and pays the reduced cost for it due to the creatures being out. With the Disciple dying with a coin counter on it, it's brought back immediately to the field thanks to Athreos, but has nothing to sacrifice. Martin decides to vat the Sun Titan, and then activates the vat to bring a token copy of it out. It enters, and returns his copy of 7 dwarves. Martin then casts a Cackling Counterpart, making another token copy of the Sun Titan, and this time brings back his Tap Myriad Landscape. Moving to combat, both of the Sun Titans go at Nick, while the dwarves head at me. Martin gets 2 Sun Titan triggers from attacking, but only has 1 legal target, bringing back the Scalding Tarn. I take the hit, and Nick blocks 1 with the Disciple, taking 6. Martin then taps his idol to draw a card, and moves to his end step, losing the VAT token of the Sun Titan. I draw Plain of Ajuka Bog, and exile Martin's Yard. 9 mana then brings back Greven, and I pass with Martin sacrificing his Scalding Tarn. At the end of turn, Max uses Pharika to exile 1 of his creatures and make a Snake token, which as it comes in, triggers Perforos and deals 2 to his opponents. Martin decides to grab a Dwarven Mine, which enters untapped because of his mountains, and makes him a 1/1 dwarf token. Max's upkeep has him eating my Hex Parasite with Clothis, and dealing 2 to his opponents and gaining 2. He draws, and then plays a Dominus of Fealty, which enters and triggers Perforos. This has us taking another 2, and also has Perforos and Clothis being active. He moves to combat, swinging Perforos at Nick, and Clothis at Martin. Martin decides to block the Sun Titan token, and Nick just takes the hit. Nick takes 1 to his vault, and plays a tap Shambling Vents. He taps 9 mana, which is enough to cast an Evangelize with buyback, and I have no choice but to give Nick my commander. Nick then passes to Martin. Martin untaps and draws. He plays an island for turn, and once more casts Brudiclad. He then pays to activate the Hammer of Perforos, sacrificing the Dwarven Mine to make a 3/3 Golem token. Moving to combat, he makes a Mirror token, and then has all of his tokens become a copy of the Sun Titan token that he made the turn before with the Cackling Counterpart. He then goes to declare attacks, and swings all out at Max. Martin gains 4 Sun Titan triggers, but only has 2 legal permanents to bring back, the Scalding Tarn and Dwarven Mine. With the Mine re-entering, he gets another Dwarf token. Max then activates Pharika before moving to blocks, exiling a card to make a Snake token. It enters and triggers Perforos, which is enough to take Nick and I out. Max then blocks 2 of them and takes 12. Sadly for Martin, the Sun Titan under the vat is also gone because Nick has been removed from the game. Max's upkeep has a Dominus trigger, with Max stealing a Sun Titan. He then exiles a land with Clothis, making a mana from doing so, and recasts the Sliver Queen, which Martin is quick to stop with a counterspell, but has to sacrifice his Tarn and take 1 to find an island to pay for it. Max then swings the Stolen Titan at its owner, and Martin blocks with the 7 dwarves. With the dwarves dying, it triggers the Mimic Vat, but Max responds, exiling it with Pharika before he can exile it under the vat, and Martin ends up with a Snake token instead, and with nothing else, Max passes. Martin untaps and draws. He plays an island and drops a Wormquill engine. He then casts a Quasi-Duplicate and targets the engine, making a token copy of it. Max is no fool, and knows fully well that Martin's going to turn all of his tokens into a Wormcoil engine, and he sees the writing on the wall, conceding the game. Game review time. So unfortunately my Greven deck didn't seem to do a heck of a lot, and that kind of is one of the reasons why I took it apart. Martin's Brudiclad deck, however, did a great job of making things into tokens that weren't typically tokens. It was also kind of nice to see red and blue doing it, as opposed to the typical white and green I'm used to. Nick's Athreos deck got to do cool stuff by stealing creatures permanently, and I liked that turn where he was able to use the coin at the end of turn, before exiling it with the Cleat trigger to get the creature back permanently. Max's Sliver Queen deck wasn't actually a Sliver deck at all, it was a god deck, but it just goes to show how powerful some of those gods can be. Taking 2 from Clothis for each of his upkeeps, not to mention every time he cast a creature when taking 2 from Perforos, added up very quickly. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/mtgmudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/mtgmudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.